Psalm 32. Spent a long time on verse 1 because I wanted to talk about the forgiveness thing. So let's move on to verse 2 and see what else there is to talk about. Yes, what joy for those whose record the Lord has cleared of guilt. Well, see, that's what happens when God forgives us. He clears our record of guilt. Whose lives are lived in complete honesty. Now that's an interesting thought. How many people do you know, including yourself, who live their lives in complete honesty? Oh boy, I'm afraid I'm not in that group. I want to be. I make effort to be, but man, I slip. There are a lot of times when to be completely honest, well, it's uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. Honesty is the best policy, right? Except when I have to be honest. I don't want everybody else to be honest. Now, this may not be an issue with you, but I think for very many people, Christians, honesty is difficult. We live in a culture where honesty is, what's the word I would use? Fluid, flexible. I'm not even going to get political about it because it doesn't matter. There's so much going on in the political arena right now that hinges on truth and honesty. And frankly, I don't know if we're ever going to get to the real honest truth. It's layered under layers of all kinds of stuff. Okay, what happens in the White House is important, but it's not nearly as important as what happens in your and my house. Honesty, being completely honest, living lives in complete honesty, that doesn't happen accidentally. Honest people are honest because they intended to be honest. They took measures to be honest. They have formed their life's patterns around not just the desire, but the commitment to live honestly. Well, that should just go without saying, but it doesn't anymore. So here, I think what I want to suggest connects to any of us that have kids or grandkids, especially. I think it would be one of the smartest, God-honoring efforts if we chose to aim and then address, go to work on reflecting honesty, being a role model of honesty for our kids and grandkids. If you got grandkids and you get to be around them a lot, man, that's fabulous. That's a gift from God. But even if, like me, you don't get to be around your grandkids very much, or not nearly as much as I would like, our input, our example, our model still matters. Expressing yourself with honesty does not mean that it's okay for us to just be crude and rude and socially unacceptable. I think it's important for us, me, to have honest opinions, okay? But I also think my political opinion, my social commentary is just noise. What they remember is my own honesty. And I want to challenge all of us to take aim, and then in partnership with the Holy Spirit to pursue complete honesty in our lives. Do you think there's anybody that wants you and me to be completely honest more than God does? I don't think so. Well, what joy for those whose record the Lord has cleared of guilt, whose lives are lived in complete honesty. This state of forgiveness and honesty they're not disconnected. In our state of forgiveness, that frees us up with psychological and emotional and spiritual energy to pursue honesty. Okay. And then he turns the corner and he looks back. Verse 3, when I refused to confess my sin, my body wasted away and I groaned all day long. Well, it's not like I had unconfessed sin. No, that's not what he wrote. He wrote, when I refused to confess my sin. That's a different deal. Oh boy, I see it in marriages. I see it in my own marriage where my pride keeps me from confessing when I mess up, when I do something or say something wrong. That's not healthy in a marriage. It will come back and bite you on the backside. But in our walk with God, it's very, the word that comes to mind for me is stupid, to try and refuse or conceal my sin. If I refuse to confess my sin, let's, snap out of it. God already knows. You can't hide anything from him. See, God knows, and I know when I've done that. And that creates a negative dynamic in my life. But Paul says, my body wasted away. They're called somatic disorders that are connected to emotional and psychological and spiritual issues. When we refuse to confess our sin, our body is affected by that. Why would anybody refuse to confess their sins? Why would I? One reason. In my opinion, it comes down to one reason. It's my pride. My pride. Well, first of all, I should say about my pride, it's the root of almost all the sin in my life. And this is not a new thing, and it's certainly not a thing just with me. It was what Lucifer got kicked out of heaven for. It was his own pride. More relationships are torpedoed, exploded by pride than any other thing. Marriages are ended because of pride. Marriages that could have been saved and could have thrived don't because of pride. When I refused to confess my sin, my body wasted away and I groaned all day long. I'm not saying that if you're having some somatic disorder, some bodily issues, I'm not saying those are all because of your pride. Those are all because of unconfessed sins. I'm not saying that. But I am saying when we refuse to confess, we're not just playing a mind game. We're playing a body game as well. our body wastes away, and we groan all day long. I have realized recently I've developed a bad habit of groaning. You know, I get up, I groan. Sit down, I groan. I groan. Why? No good reason. I'm not so sure, but what David was not confessing, that it was a literal physical groan. But I do know that when sin remains unconfessed, when I refuse to confess my sin, it doesn't make the sin go away. It still hangs on. And, well, have you ever had emotional groaning, spiritual groaning? May have not even gotten past your lips, but happens. Look at this, verse 4. Day and night your hand of discipline was heavy on me. My strength evaporated like water in the summer heat. Well, see, when I refuse to confess my sin, then God will bring his hand of discipline on me, and it will be heavy. He can't make, I suppose he can do anything he wants to, but he tends, my experience and as I look through the Bible, he doesn't make anybody confess. But he will bring circumstances to bear in such a way refusing to confess becomes more and more stupid and futile. One of the ways that this, I think, takes place sometimes is the truth gets out, it leaks, and people know. When God's hand of discipline is heavy on a person, unless they're mature, they are going to look for anybody else to blame but themselves. I don't know why they did that to me. Why did they? I mean, the blame gets shifted and thrown and cast in all kinds of directions, just not here. Well, day and night. He may have meant that in a literal sense, but figuratively, basically what it means is I could not escape the heavy hand of God's discipline. To the degree, David writes, my strength evaporated like water in the summer heat. Yeah, when you're trying to compensate and adjust and cover, that takes energy, psychological, physical, emotional energy. David said, my strength evaporated like water in the summer heat. As I'm recording this, we're in toward the back end of the middle of July in Las Vegas, and today the temperature got up to about 113. If you pour water out there on the sidewalk, you almost turn around twice and that water's evaporated. It's gone. David said, that's what it felt like. My strength was just whoosh, boom, it's gone. Now, a couple of quick things and then I'm going to end for today. First quick thing is, David didn't try to hide this part of his story. Why would he tell it? Because he wants us to learn from his story. The second quick thing is the most obvious of all. Confess our sin. Don't refuse to confess. Own up to it. Be an adult. Grow some maturity and confess. Oh, see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.